Ladies and gentlemen, our honorable guest, ex-Estonian President Toomas Hendrik Ilves. Welcome. Our guest was not only the president of Estonia from 2006 to 2016. He was also the author or the creator of famous Estonian miracle. We will not speak about economy now, today, but this is important information. He was also a member of a group of East European president who went to Georgia in 2008 during the Soviet invasion of Georgia. So this is a brave man, a creative politician and thinker. He's now distinguished fellow at Hoover Institution in Stanford.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Home.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
It's called home.
I'm at Tartu University, Interali.
Okay. So we will not speak about Estonia so much today. We will speak about Ukraine and the war on Ukraine. Are you afraid?
Well, I'm worried about Ukraine and Ukrainians and what they are putting up with, and I'm worried about the response of the western part of Europe.
We'll come back to the response, but the first questions, to details of the response, but the first question which comes to my mind is, why in 2008 the group of East European presidents went to Georgia when the invasion started? And in 2022, it didn't happen, at least yet.
I'm not president anymore.
Well, was it your idea originally?
Well, the way it happened was that President Kaczynski called me up very angry and said we have to make a statement. And so we drafted a statement. And then the statement came out and it was signed by East European leaders, and nothing happened. And so then President Kaczynski again was very angry, and he called me up and he said, "What are we going to do?" I said, and then I said, kind of more as a joke, "Well, we could always go there." And he said, "The plane will be in Tallinn at 9:30 in the morning." So he picked me up, or the plane of the Respospolita picked me up 9:30 the next morning, and the Latvian Prime Minister drove up from Riga. It's about 300 kilometers, and we flew to Warsaw, and then President Adamkus flew to Warsaw from Vilnius,
And so on. So one can say this was an output of misunderstanding between you and President Kaczynski. Why not such a misunderstanding may or does not happen now? Is it a different mood in the West? Are these people lazy? Are we more afraid? What's the reason?
well, I mean, look, they all did their pilgrimage before the 24th of February. So, I mean, Scholz was there, and Macron, and, okay, they went there. And the Estonian president was there on the 23rd. And of course, the 24th, in addition to being the day that changed everything, is also Estonian Independence Day. So he had to be at home. I can't say about other people, but I think that at this point it's dangerous enough. When we went there, it was
What's dangerous?
Kiev.
Kiev. They are in danger. But Tbilisi was in danger as well. I remember pilots refused to land in Tbilisi because of the danger. So it had to be a really difficult situation. Well, do you think that situation is different, people are different, or understanding of the situation is different?
I think we're dealing with a lack of courage on the part of some people.
Would you like to say that President Duda is different than President Kaczynski was?
President who?
President Ilves is also a well-established diplomat, so this is diplomatic answer. Well, okay, that's the problem?
You know, I really don't know the thinking behind it. Well, I mean, while I had my disagreements with President Kaczynski, he really was a figure of courage at a time when there was not so much. I mean, that same trip, when we finally got to Tbilisi, because we flew to Ganja, Azerbaijan, and then we drove. They gave us. Aliyev gave us nice Mercedeses and drove us up to the pass, and then we were met by these 20-year-old cars, and we drove down from the pass to Tbilisi, but it was fortunately a full moon because we drove without lights because they were afraid of the Russians attacking us. But then we got there, and Sarkozy was there too. And so President Kaczynski said, okay, well, we'd like to have a meeting with you. To Sarkozy. And Sarkozy said, well, I'll meet with you, but not with the little ones. And then Kaczynski said, well, then we won't meet. I mean, that's different. I mean, that's a certain degree of a principle position that you don't always see.
Okay, when you look, let's leave this old stories and come to what's going on currently. When you look now, what should we do to support Ukraine? I mean NATO countries, because both our countries belong to NATO and European Union countries and so on.
Well, I think we should be arming Ukraine at the very minimum as much as we can and give them not
planes?
What?
Planes?
Well, there are planes. I mean, in this saga, I mean, first, you know, like, okay, here are the planes. No, we don't want to give them the planes. Yesterday, well, we don't care if you take the planes, but, you know, and then Poland says, well, we don't want to take them there. There is a scene in this movie about Winston Churchill. It's called The Darkest Hour, and it was the darkest hour, and the United States was not supporting or willing to give planes to the UK during the Blitz and the Battle of Britain. And then FDR in this movie says, which apparently is a true story, he said, I'll tell you what, I'll take the planes to a mile from the Canadian border, and you can take horses and drag them across the border. Well, I mean...
we have border and horses as well, you mean?
Well, the Ukrainians would have to take their horses.
They have some horses.
But they have tractors now. Their tractors are doing a good job.
Okay, so what you are saying is there is not a problem of legal obstacles, but there is a problem of mental obstacles.
Or will.
Excuse me?
Will.
Will.
I think that, I mean, you can make all kinds of mental constructions on why you should or should not do something. But when you have a war, what matters is what you're willing to do.
Well, so let's catch this point. What we really want to do as far as Ukraine is concerned, what the West really likes to do, wills to do.
Well, I don't know what the West would like to do, but what's necessary is to defeat Russia once and for all, because if they are defeated, this will, for the next generation or more, will squash or quash their imperial revanchist dreams. As silly as they may be, but my fear is that we may lose the country of Ukraine and the Ukrainians living there if we don't stop Putin. And then once he regroups from that, then there'll be someone else. So we must defeat.
What do you mean saying we must defeat Putin once and for all? What does it mean? Invade and occupy Moscow?
No, just stay in your damn borders.
Sending troops there?
But not across.
Why are you not an American president now?
I wasn't born there.
Okay. You've been born in Stockholm, this is the problem. Coming back, do you call for the Third World War?
No, this is nonsense. No, I don't call for the Third World War.
So how you imagine to defeat Putin once and for all, which I like very much, but avoiding the Third World War, which many people are very nervous about?
Because I don't think he will do it. And when I say once and for all, it means that the invincible Red Army is finally shown to be a paper tiger.
That's what Ukrainians did.
They're doing it, but they need more help.
Okay, should we establish no-fly zone?
It's not going to happen, so there's no point in even discussing it. There will be no no-fly zone. So, I mean, I think what we need to do is give them enough armaments to make their own no-fly zone. I mean, they have their TOW missiles, they have their NLAWs, which takes care of tanks. But the real problem is the air war. But there are very, very good missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, that should be given to the Ukrainians. What they have can shoot low-flying helicopters, and they've downed quite a few of those. But really, to get the fixed-winged airplanes that are higher up, you need to have genuine missiles. Stingers won't do the job, basically.
Well, you are also a member of the Council of Munich Security Conference, so you must know pretty much about the defense security problems. Do you think that Ukrainians can win the war with Russia militarily?
Yes, I think they do. They have if they are well enough armed, they have the will to fight, which, as we've seen in the 15 days since the war began, the Russians do not. I mean, they have gotten to the point where they're using the same three-man barricade units, the ones like the NKVD had in World War II, where they will then shoot the people who don't want to fight or who might desert. I mean, it is a pitiful army. It is not capable. I mean, okay, your pilots might be okay because they get a lot of training, but the army itself is utterly useless, as we have seen over and over again. They are abandoning their armor because they're not fed, because the logistics is, to use a famous Russian term, a bardak. They're not. They are a terrible army, and against them, they have people who have become a nation, and it is, I mean, for a Polish audience, I say what they're doing now is the equivalent of the miracle on the Vistula. When vastly outnumbered, outgunned, but believing in their country, believing in the justice of their cause, they will win.
Well, if you say they will win, how do you imagine the world after? The Ukrainians will win, what means they preserve their state, independent state. They preserve their right to join NATO and European Union, and they preserve their sovereignty. And on the other side, there is Russia, post-Putin Russia, probably. This big country with nuclear weapons, the first or second arsenal in the world. First, yeah, okay. If it works. So, how do you imagine the geopolitical situation in Europe and perhaps in the world in the days and the years after?
Well, first of all, I mean, to think about what actually will need to be needed to do or to be done is would be massive infusions of aid to Ukraine to rebuild the country after so much of it has been destroyed. That's one part. A Nuremberg tribunal to try the war criminals who have been responsible for this, not only the ones at the highest political levels, but the ones who actually on the ground did what they did. And that will be a long, long process, you know.
Long, you mean weeks, months, decades?
Decades, because you're going to have to, well, look at the Nazis. You know, it took 20, 30 years to find some of them, but they were basically found. So I anticipate a process like that.
But Germany, Nazi Germany, has been really defeated. Will Russia be defeated, in your opinion, in similar mood?
No, because no one's going to occupy Russia. But, I mean, you know, Russia doesn't, okay, it won't be occupied, but it has a problem. Its reputation, and Russians will be looked upon for generations as barbarians after this. And so there will be increased pressure to actually do something themselves, because you don't want to be a pariah for, you know, if you're a 20-year-old, maybe you won't be a pariah when you're 60, but you really probably do want to make your country acceptable.
Okay, do you expect the West can prevail so much enough to make Russians to send Putin for tribunal, to the tribunal?
Well, I'll put it more broadly. I mean, it's not just, let's not focus on the tribunal. I mean, 37 countries have already applied to the International Criminal Court, filing suit or at least amicus curiae briefs against the leadership of Russia. So that's quite a bit. I mean, let's look at the past 80 years. 80 years ago, or actually 78 years ago, began a 6-year process which created the world that existed until the 24th of February. I mean, you had 1944, the Bretton Woods Institution, the World Bank and the IMF. 1945, the United Nations Organization, followed by UNRWA, which took care of 12 million refugees in Europe. You had GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which began the liberalization of trade because that was seen as a causal factor in World War II. And then, 50 years later, it became the WTO when you added services. You had the Marshall Plan. You had the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. You had the Schuman Declaration, which led ultimately to the European Union, but in between you had the coal and steel community and then the European Economic Community. All of those things were done in 6 years, and those are the fundamental institutions that we have lived in. And basically, I don't know if there's anyone here who's 78, but the rest of us, all of us, even I am 68, have lived in that system. And that system was destroyed on February 24th. We had this, I mean, first of all, we had the Cold War, which lasted from the late 40s until, depending on what date you pick, but say 1989 to 1991, somewhere, Cold War over. And then we have, all of this kumbaya druzhba narodov, in which everyone is, you don't know druzhba narodov here either. This is great. I'm so glad you don't. But anyway, someone know what druzhba narodov is? No, no one. You do, but.
Explain, please, Professor.
It's friendship of the peoples. In German, I mean Russian, sorry. It's friendship of the people and of Soviet internationalism, and everybody is very friendly with everybody, except everyone has to speak Russian. That's Druzhba Narodov. Any case, this attitude for, oh, now everything is wonderful and happy and the Cold War's over and okay, you have this little problem, you have a cyber attack on Estonia in 2007, but oh, they're just East Europeans. And then you have this invasion of Georgia, and it's like, well, okay, but, why don't we just...
Georgia. It's only Georgia.
It's only Georgia, and let's do a reset. And then you have major, then you have 2014. Well, it's not very nice, but, well...
Shit happens.
Yeah. And so all of this continues, sort of massive influence on the Brexit referendum, on the U.S. election. Yeah. And then
irregularities.
Yes. But now, on February 24th, you basically destroyed that system. And here, of course, this is, that's why there have been a number of articles the last couple of weeks about, oh, those East Europeans were right. Well, not too many, but some. That's, I mean, so actually one could say that the rule-based liberal democratic order ended earlier, but people were not willing to admit it until the past 2 weeks. So when you say, what can we do? Well, I would say what we have
The
to
exact question was not what can we do, but how the world will look like.
How what?
How the world will look like after we will defeat Russia once and for all.
It's up to us. It's up to you people. That's who it's up to. Are we going to stay and not change those institutions that were worthwhile and worthy and accomplished so much for 3/4 of a century? Or will we do something new? Or will we do something better? Certainly, I think everyone agrees that a rules-based international order is in our interest, but maybe some of the rules are too rigid or don't work anymore. Maybe the rules for the enlargement of the European Union need changing. Maybe we need, because so much of conflict today is no longer kinetic, maybe, the idea of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is based on fighter range, bomber range, tank logistics, is not the correct body. Maybe in an era where, kinetic warfare, which we've known most of the time, is based on Newton's second law of force equals mass times acceleration. But, if you're going to take down a country's digital infrastructure, and has been done several times to Ukraine, there is no mass, there is no acceleration because there's no distance and there's no time. And Tallinn, Torino, Toronto, and Tokyo are all basically the same distance away for an attack. So maybe we should think of a broader liberal world order alliance. I mean, there are all kinds of things we can do. This is not an exhaustive list, but I think we need to start thinking more out of the box to figure out how to solve the failures that we have faced in the last several decades.
Well, okay, but you paint a picture like the Russia after this war would become something like North Korea, the pariah forever. This is not South Korea. This is a huge state with millions of people, with advanced military capabilities, apart from this infantry, which is Slavic in negative sense, in most negative sense.
There's still more of us.
How you imagine?
There's still more of us. There are more of us. There are almost 1 billion people in NATO. Come on.
We are just 2 here and some nice people in the audience. But, I mean, you must offer a position, a kind of a position to this proud, huge nation. No? Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, maybe you guys can do it, but I'm certainly tired of like this, kind of playing psychoanalyst to a big, proud nation. I mean, no one was playing psychoanalyst, well, aside from Tarja Halonen, no one was playing psychoanalyst to Estonians. I mean, no one was like, oh, we have to worry about what they feel. No, there was none of that. I don't know, not too many people worrying about how Poles feel, right? So, I mean, that's why I say this kumbaya, like, it's like enough of that.
Okay, we have no more time, but one question and one answer, please, shortly. Do you not afraid that when you push Putin and Russian elites too much, then the Third World War will happen? They will push the red button, and our world will disappear.
I'll ask a different question.
Okay. What time is it?
No. We want Gdansk, or I'm going to press the button.
Could you repeat, please?
Well, it's the same thing. It's blackmail. It's like, give us Gdansk, or I'll push the button. Where do you stop? Where do you stop with this kind of person? Okay, you can't do that, or I'll push the button. Or you can't do that. Well, actually, so look at those idiots in the West. They actually listened to me. Now I'm going to say, give me Gdansk, or I'll push the button. There must be a point in which you say, no more. Enough.
That's the time. Okay. Thank you very much, President Ilves.